Is it still possible to find true love? I have built everything, and I have nothing.
Is it still possible to find true love? Lethiwe Khumalo, a 30-year-old billionaire, sat alone in his glass-walled Sandton penthouse, swirling a glass of red wine he had no intention of drinking. Johannesburg blazed beneath him. 10 million lights stretched across the high-felt dark, and not one of them warmed him. He leaned back into the silence and exhaled. I have built everything, he thought, and I have nothing. He set the glass down. Over the years, there had been women, beautiful women, accomplished women, women who laughed at exactly the right moments and wore exactly the right things. But they all wanted the same thing in the end. Not him, not Lethiwe, not the boy who had grown up with nothing in Soweto and clawed his way to the top of everything. They wanted the penthouse, the accounts, the name on the buildings. He had been looked at 1,000 times and truly seen by no one. That evening, his childhood friend and trusted attorney, Bongani Benwike, stopped by and found him like that, still in the half-dark, the city glittering uselessly below. Bongani poured himself a drink and sat down. You look terrible, Bongani, Lethiwe said without moving. I've had enough. I want to meet someone who sees me, just me. Not the money, not the empire. Me. Bongani nodded slowly. I hear you, brother. But what are you going to do about it? Lethiwe finally turned around. There was something different in his eyes. Not sadness anymore, but a decision. Tomorrow, he said, Lumina Pharmaceuticals opens its doors. The biggest pharmaceutical company in South Africa. My most ambitious project. 300 staff. State-of-the-art labs. The whole country is watching. He paused. And I'm going to walk in there as a cleaner. Bongani went still. A cleaner. I'll go by Leo. Contract staff. Nobody will know who I am. You'll tell the press I'm abroad on business. I want to watch how people behave when they think no one important is watching. I want to see who is kind when kindness costs them nothing, and who is cruel when they think there are no consequences. Lethiwe looked back out at the city. If there is a woman out there who treats a man with a mop the same way she would treat a man in a boardroom, I want to find her. Bongani stared at him for a long moment. Then he put down his glass. Lethiwe, he said quietly, you know this could go very wrong. Everything worth doing could go very wrong. Lethiwe picked up his wine glass again, and this time he drank. That's how I know it's worth doing. Bongani left just after midnight, still shaking his head. By the time the city began its slow gray climb toward morning, Lethiwe had already laid everything out on the kitchen counter. A plain navy overall, a pair of worn work boots he had bought from a market stall in Yeovil 3 days ago, and a staff ID badge that read Leo Dubé, Contract Cleaning Services. He had thought of everything. He always did. The cover was simple. Bongani would field all press inquiries with a single statement. The founder of Lumina Pharmaceuticals was finalizing international partnerships abroad and would be unreachable for the foreseeable future. The executive team, none of whom had ever seen their boss in anything less than a tailored suit, would have no reason to doubt it. Nobody looks twice at a man holding a mop. The opening of Lumina Pharmaceuticals was everything Lethiwe had built it to be. The glass facade caught the Johannesburg morning like a mirror held up to the sun. Dignitaries moved through the lobby. Cameras flashed. Staff in pressed uniforms stood tall with the particular pride of people who knew they had arrived somewhere. Lethiwe watched it all from the service corridor. He pushed his mop trolley slowly along the eastern wing, the rubber wheels squeaking faintly against the polished floor. Around him, his company hummed and breathed and opened itself to the world. 3 years of his life. Every rand he had risked, and not one person glanced in his direction. It did not take long. By mid-morning, the fault lines Lethiwe had not known existed inside his own company were already visible. Hairline cracks running beneath the gleaming surface of everything he had built. The pharmacists and lab technicians moved through luminous corridors with a particular kind of ownership. The way people walk through spaces they believe exist specifically from. Lab coats pressed, chins lifted, eyes that passed over cleaning staff the way eyes pass over furniture. It was in the cafeteria that it first drew blood. Lethiwe Leo was carrying his lunch tray to a corner table when he heard her voice cut across the room. Police Nkosi, newly appointed head pharmacist, was speaking to a colleague at a volume designed to be overheard. I cannot believe they let cleaners eat in the same cafeteria as qualified staff. This is a pharmaceutical company, not a township soup kitchen. The room did not go quiet. That was the worst part. Nobody flinched. It landed like something ordinary. Leo set his tray down slowly. His jaw was tight enough to ache. A hand touched his elbow. Light, unhurried. Old Jabu Shabalala, 60-something. Eyes that had seen everything twice. Gave him a small nod. "Don't let them get to you," he said quietly. "This is just the first day. They always show you who they are on the first day." That night, Lethiwe sat in Bongani's office and stared at the floor. 15 years in business, he said. "I have never seen people treat other people like this." Bongani looked at him for a long moment. Then softly, "Welcome to the world without a title, brother." She arrived at 11 minutes past 9, which meant she was late, which meant she was already fighting. Nambula Makona had been fighting since 5 that morning. Since Thandi woke burning with fever and would not stop crying. Since the neighbor arrived 20 minutes behind schedule with apologies that could not be spent. Since the taxi broke down on the N1 and she covered the last stretch on foot in the Johannesburg heat. Her CV pressed against her chest in a brown envelope like something worth protecting. She walked through Lumina's glass doors with sweat at her temples and hoped she had no business still carrying. The receptionist checked the register and did not quite meet her eyes. The pharmacist position had been filled. 9 minutes ago, Nambula stood completely still. Then she asked quietly if there was anything else available. The receptionist blinked. "We still need cleaners." Nambula took the form. She started that afternoon. Leo noticed her within the first hour. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because of something that stopped in mid-motion as he worked the corridor near the entrance. The security guard, Saifo, sat at his post the way he always did, invisible to everyone who walked past him. Nambula stopped, looked at his badge, and said, "Saifo, sharp uniform. Good afternoon." Saifo sat up straighter. He smiled for the first time all day. That evening, Jabu found Leo in the storeroom and leaned in the doorway. "That new girl? Trained pharmacist. She'd rather scrub floors than go home empty-handed to her child." Something moved in Lethiwe's chest that had not moved in a very long time. Luminous corridors had a way of carrying news faster than the ventilation system. And by Wednesday morning, everyone knew about the cleaner with the pharmacy degree. Police and Kosi found this irresistible. She waited until the corridor outside the dispensary was full: lab technicians, admin staff, 2 junior pharmacists. And then she called across to Nambula in the suite, carrying voice of someone who has rehearsed casualness. "Cece, come here a moment. I heard you have a pharmacy degree." She tilted her head. "Tell me, did they not teach you in pharmacy school that mopping is beneath you? Or did the degree not quite work out?" Yolanda and Thandika laughed. The corridor waited. Nambula turned. She walked toward Polisa slowly, without hurry, and looked her directly in the eye. "My degree taught me to save lives," she said. "My father taught me that no honest work is shameful. So today I clean. Tomorrow, who knows?" She walked back to her mop. Leo stood 20 feet away and could not find a single word. Jabu appeared at his shoulder and clapped him once, firmly. Now you see her. Later, in the thin shade behind the loading bay, they shared a tea break in comfortable quiet. Nambula spoke without self-pity about her father's vegetable cart, school fees counted out in coins, the man who left the moment she told him she was pregnant, the pharmacy finals she wrote with a newborn strapped to her back. Leo listened. When she finished, he said softly, "You are not just surviving, Nambula. You are something rare." She laughed it off, shaking her head like he was being foolish. But she did not forget it. The call came at 2:30. Leo watched Nambula's face change from across the corridor, the color draining. The phone pressed hard against her ear. Her cleaning caddy left where it stood. She was moving before she had finished the call. Thandi was burning, vomiting, could not stand. The HR office was 3 doors down. Leo followed at a distance and listened through the open door as Nambula explained herself quickly, cleanly, without drama. She needed an emergency advance, just enough for the hospital deposit. She would sign anything they needed. Polisa was passing in the corridor and slowed to a stop. The policy is 6 months of employment before any advance. Her voice was pleasant, almost helpful. "She's been here 2 weeks. Rules are rules." Yolanda appeared behind her. "If we gave advances to every cleaner with a personal problem, this would not be a pharmaceutical company. It would be a welfare office." Leo stepped forward. "Her child is sick." His voice was low and very controlled. Can we not talk about this like human beings? Polisa turned to look at him the way one looks at something unexpected on the floor. Leo, you push him up. This conversation is above your pay grade. Jabu surged forward from the doorway, furious, and Leo put a hand on his arm. Then Mr. Musa Vilakazi walked in. He said nothing to Polisa, nothing to Yolanda. He read the form on the desk, uncapped a pen, signed the override, and handed Nambula the cash in one continuous motion. Go, he said quietly. Thandi needs her mother. Nambula ran. Leo stood in the empty doorway and stared at the space she had left behind. His heart had made its decision. He just could not say it yet. The old man moved slowly, the way people move when their bodies have carried a long life. He had come from Soweto on the early bus, a grandfather in a brown jacket, prescription folded in his breast pocket, the particular patience of someone who has learned that waiting is simply part of things. Lumina's public dispensary window processed him without incident. The packet was handed across. He said thank you, the way he probably said thank you for everything, and turned to leave. Nambula was passing with her cleaning caddy when something stopped her. She could not have explained it precisely. Something about the label, the numbers, the way they sat wrong against what she knew. She had spent 4 years learning exactly this. Her feet stopped before her mind had fully caught up. Baba, she said gently, can I see that packet for a moment? He handed it to her without question, trusting her the way the elderly sometimes trust quietly spoken women. 30 seconds. That was all it took. The dosage was triple what it should have been, a data entry error, a distracted moment, a mistake that would have stopped his heart before the week was out. She set down her caddy. She walked to the dispensary window and explained the error to Yolanda in a calm, clear voice, without accusation. Yolanda stared at the packet, then at Nambula, then back at the packet. Mr. Karabo Dlamini had been standing behind them the entire time. He did not move for a long moment. Then quietly, she just saved that man's life. The grandfather took Nambula's hand in both of his. God sent you, my child. Leo stood in the corridor and felt something he had not felt in years. Not pride in his company, pride in her. The message arrived company-wide on a Thursday morning. Polisa requisitioned new lab coats before lunch. Yolanda rescheduled a hair appointment she had been putting off for weeks. Thandika stood in front of the bathroom mirror and practiced an expression that said competent but approachable. Corridors that had been loud with casual cruelty suddenly hummed with performance. Everyone was, abruptly, their very best self. Behind the loading dock, the fever tree still held its afternoon shade. Nambula sat between Leo and Jabu, her lunch untouched, looking up at the sky through the branches. I just hope he is kind, she said, to no one in particular. Some people build big things and forget that small people hold them up. Jabu nodded vigorously, emphatically, as though she had said something he had been waiting years to hear. Leo went completely still. He looked at her profile, the quiet certainty in her face, the absence of bitterness in a woman who had every right to it, and understood with sudden, total clarity that she had no idea she was speaking about him, that every word was landing on the man who had built the building she was sitting behind, that she was hoping out loud, that he was worthy of her. He said nothing. 3 days later, Leo did not come to work. No call, no message, nothing. On the second day, Nambula walked to Bangani's office, knocked, and waited to be seen. She asked him, quietly, carefully, not to deduct Leo's salary. Something must be wrong, she said. Leo would not just vanish. Bangani listened. That evening he drove to Lethiwe's home and told him exactly what she had done. Lethiwe sat with it for a long time. Then it's time. He walked in at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Bangani half a step behind him, and the lobby fell silent the way rooms do before lightning strikes. The charcoal suit, the set of his shoulders, the stillness of a man who had spent his whole life walking into rooms and owning them. Police's hand found the dispensary counter. Jaba's mop handle hit the floor. Lethiwe removed his sunglasses. The whispers moved through the atrium like a current. That's Leo. That's the cleaner. That can't be. That's... And then silence again, complete and airless. He addressed them all. His voice was calm. His eyes were not. He spoke of what he had seen inside his own building. The dignity of those who had nothing to prove, and the cruelty of those who used their credentials like weapons against people who could not fight back. He did not shout. He did not need to. He promoted Musa Vilakazi to Senior Vice President of Operations. He elevated Karabo Dlamini to Head of Internal Quality Control. Then he turned to Jabu Shabalala, old Jabu, who had nudged him gently on the first day, who had said they always show you who they are, and said, "You have cleaned these floors with dignity for longer than some of these people have had their degrees. From today, you are head of staff welfare. You will never hold a mop again." Jabu put his face in his hands and wept without shame. Then Lethiwe turned, and she was there. Nambula's eyes moved from the suit to his face, tracing the jaw, the voice, the way he stood. Something shifted behind her expression, then settled into something awful and certain. "Leo," she whispered. He stepped forward. "My real name is Lethiwe Khumalo. I own this company, and I am sorry." Her eyes filled not with joy, with something older and harder than joy. "You lied to me." She picked up her bag. She walked out. 300 people did not breathe. Lethiwe stood at the front of everything he had built, and for the first time in his life, it meant nothing at all. She went home and did not get back up. 2 days. Thandi curled warm and quiet against her side, asking questions Nambula did not have the words for. Her father sat by the front door in his good chair, rosary moving through his fingers, saying nothing because he understood that some griefs need to be left alone to breathe. On the second evening, the television said her name, founder Lethiwe Khumalo, revealed to have worked undercover as a cleaner for several weeks, has today promoted Miss Nambula Makona, a trained pharmacist who had been employed as a cleaner, to head of patient relations and quality assurance at Lumina Pharmaceuticals. Her father fell to his knees on the sitting room floor. Thandi clapped with the pure, uncomplicated joy of a child who did not yet know how complicated joy could be. Nambula stared at the screen and said nothing. Then someone knocked at the door. No driver outside. No security. No lawyers. Just Lethiwe, in a plain shirt, holding nothing, looking like a man who had finally put everything down. "I didn't come to explain," he said. "I came because you worried about a cleaner named Leo, and Leo wanted you to know every single word he ever said to you is true." He was quiet for a moment. "I have never been afraid of anything in my life, but I was afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons, and I handled that fear in the wrong way. I am sorry, Nambula." She looked at him for a long time. Then she stepped aside and let him in. Weeks later, he went down on one knee in the Lumina atrium. Jabu already weeping in the front row. Bongani smiling the smile of a man who had known all along. She said yes before he had finished asking. They married in the cradle of humankind. Thandi scattering petals with both fists, her grandfather dancing with his eyes closed. And on the morning Nambula Makona Khumalo walked into Lumina's executive boardroom for the first time, heels on the same floors she had once scrubbed, she paused at the door and placed her hand on the frame. She didn't come this far by being lucky. She came this far by never, ever letting go.